And welcome to Tabletop 24. I'm Alan.
I'm John.
I'm Brian.
And thank you for joining us for another episode of We'll Play Again, where we look at games we've gotten to the table recently and how quickly we think they're going to get back to that table, or how quickly you might get that back to that table. So today we have Orléans, or Orléans, depending on how you want to pronounce it. And it is a bag builder worker placement game that's quite a sort of more modern classic. Sort of looking at the numbers, learn time is going to be about 30 minutes. There's quite a lot to sort of pick up and make sure you're familiar with it. Teach time is going to be very variable depending upon your play group. If they are used to worker placement games like this, like Paladins and such forth like that, they're going to be familiar on how the mechanics of this are going to work. But if they're not familiar with that, it's probably looking at about 15 to 20 minutes. So bear that in mind. Setup time, there is a lot to set up on this, and you don't have a lot of your own pieces. Now we've set this up sort of mid-game. You've only sort of have 4 pieces, your houses and some coins. So everything else is on the board. So everything has to get set up onto the board. So it takes a little bit longer than normal. So you're looking at about 10 to 15 minutes on that. But tearing it down, it is a case that everything goes back into some bags. So it's a bit quicker. So it's about 5 to 10 minutes on the tear down. So there's a lot of moving components there for you to sort of get set up and tear down. If you're looking to reset it, it's probably going to be a couple of minutes because you've got everything out on the table. It's probably a little bit easier because it's already sort of semi-sorted as you go through it. Average play time, you're looking at around 90 minutes. And for a lot that's going on, it's quite a short game. Yeah. I think you could get that down to just over an hour, even with 4 players. Yeah. This does play up to 5 with the expansion that John's picked up. This was another one of John's Aircon purchases, which
I didn't spend that money. Didn't spend that much on this.
So getting this out, obviously we've been played it a few times before. So I've only played this once, so I'm least qualified to talk about it. These guys have played it a little bit more. But John.
I'd throw this into the category of it being a classic style game. It's alongside Castles of Burgundy, things like that. It's just got a classic feel to it. 2015, I believe it was initially published, something back then. So yeah, it just fits that Alhambra, Castles of Burgundy sort of feel. It's a lovely game, and obviously when it's been had extra components put in it, it looks a lot different. There was a lot of cardboard in it before. I think it's a cracking game personally, and as soon as I knew I had the money to buy it, it was a no-brainer seeing it on the shelf. If I'm honest with you, I'm so happy I picked it up. I think that the artwork fits the game and the period. But somebody else we played this with made a comment that they thought it could be updated to make it look a lot nicer. But I think for the fact this is meant to be set in Orleans in medieval times, I think the artwork fits it very well. It suits the game down to the ground. I wouldn't like to see it modernised, but saying that, you could reskin this with a space theme, no problem at all. It could be a star system. They could be, meteorites and other such things. So it suits the table that it's on. And yeah, I think it's cracking. The one thing that Alan did mention at the start is the lack of variability at the start. The only real thing that changes when you set it up is the makeup of the goods on the board. Nothing else changes. So last game there was more cheese and wine and wheat out here, but this time there's only 2 cloth left in the store. So that does change it to an extent, but you don't take out anything else from the game. So the opening moves could be samey, and the opening targets could be samey from people.
The round markers are shuffled. But that changes slightly. But other than that, you're right.
Yeah, for a fact you're going to get some that attack, some that are rewarding you for building trading posts and such. So they're there, and actually knowing that deck, you could lead to a strategy. If all your attacks comes out early, you can go heavy on goods.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's possibly the one downside that I would say about the game. But and this. But we'll come on to that later as well. But yeah, no, cracking game. I love it.
Yeah, so I think there's a bit on here. We've mentioned strategy a couple of times, and probably my biggest hang-up on the game is that it's a random bag draw. So as you go through, you're going to be picking up, and these are John's added extras. So as you're going through, you're going to be picking up the meeples and you'll be putting them in your bag, and you're choosing what your makeup of your bag is. But every round, you're randomly drawing those workers. So I ended up with 3 turns where I just couldn't play optimally because I didn't get the workers I needed. Now, there's an argument to say I could have strategized and got the workers I needed in my bag. I could have thinned my bag out so that I got the ones I wanted. But I ended up going down a strategy very much where all my blue workers were equivalent to brown, white, and black workers. So I overloaded my bag with blue workers, and for 2 turns in a row, I pulled 1 on each turn out of 7 meeples each turn. So there is that bad feel with that, and I think for me personally, you could have a little bit more control over that. But I think the luck element.
I think that's the nature of a bag builder like any of these with Quedlinburg as well, Quacks of Quedlinburg, anything like that, or whether you've got a roll of a dice as in Catan that adds that little random element. I prefer those over just
I think that's
pure logic.
Personal preference thing, because you like the randomness,
Yeah.
you like the sort of predictability of what's going on. I've got another friend we play with, and he very much likes to know what's going on as well.
The irony being though is I love my deck builders.
Yes.
Yeah,
Which there is no difference
no,
in that. I think possibly because there's not as many different choices in the meeples.
Possibly.
So with a deck builder, you put a card in a 20 card deck. You know you're only going to see that 1 in 20 times. But if I put 10 blue meeples in my bag, I know I should be seeing them, I suppose, potentially.
yeah. So, I mean, I quite liked there's lots going on in this board. You've got your own board here you're building off, which you can modify as well slightly with these technology tokens to make it easier to do actions in the future. You've got the main board here where you're walking around trying to pick up resources. You can also build guild tools there to get more gold as occasionally when it comes out of the deck here. You're trying to build up your bag by picking various meeples off the tracks here, and they give you different benefits. They might give you more money. They might give you the ability to expand your deck basically with more cards to the side here. And then you've got this other thing on the side, which is again more benefits. And so there's lots going on, and it's quite an interactive game in that sense, because if I'm going here building a guild hall, you can't build one there after I built it.
It does stop people going there, but it stops them building there. So it's
Correct,
not like I'm standing here and you can't do
There's
it.
a little bit of a chase for all the high value goods, which can happen. But again, that can be a good thing. But it just focuses on that board instead of this board or that board. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah. For other games where you have a tableau or board in front of you, there is a lot of interaction, which I quite liked. There's a lot of discussion about the boards and what's going on, and you know, I haven't pulled my meeples this time.
Yeah,
you know, I quite like it for that fact. There's it's good, but yeah, you're right. The luck balanced by the strategy thing. I think the luck is in this game is spot on. They've got that balance really well. Other games I've played, it doesn't work so much, but this one, that luck strategy balance is perfect for me. I think they've nailed it.
And I think if you've got players in your group that are AP prone, actually it takes that analysis paralysis away, because you've only got a finite amount. You
can always play something.
Yes,
it might not be the most optimum way of playing, but you can always play something.
So I think you may get a few people that will quibble over how long it takes them to decide what options they have got available to them. But it's probably better than in a game like, I don't know, and probably the most like this game to me is Paladins of West Kingdom, in the sense of you've got your workers and you're planning out what you're doing, whereas each round in this, and there's 18 rounds in it, and it's very quick, that you're deciding where they go, and you've got a smaller subset to work from. Yeah.
One of the things that I found happened in the game we played, the last time we played, was the first thing you do is you plan your move by placing workers on the board, and you can put them over on that board there to get extra points. Once you fill up one of those rows, you get to take the token, and that gives you extra points at the end. So there's one point in the game where John and I both were looking at one of these tracks to finish it off, and we were waiting to see which one was going to place their meeples where, which colours they were going to use to put in there. And I think that could kind of slow the game down a bit.
Yeah.
You
spotted it, and I was like, actually, I was read back through the rulebook, and I was like, there is no mitigation for this. You are all supposed to plan simultaneously. I suppose the group of players around the table holding you to a timer.
Yeah.
When you're planning, it's simultaneous. It's real time. Everybody's doing, but that's when the first player token comes in. Because if we'd have both put our meeples on here to put into there,
yes,
me going first means I would have grabbed it. So it's and I think I realised at that point that you were going to get it because the first player token was over there and come out. So it wasn't worth me doing it. So and
there's limited amounts of these as well. When they're gone, they're gone. So if two people have chosen to pick the last one and
and it's not in the player board.
You lose a go.
And also the fact that we both could say go for it. I go, well, I don't want it on this pass round to activate, and then Brian goes, well, I'm going to activate it. Then that locks me out.
One thing I did think was good about this and quite thematic was the idea that if you ran out of goods, when a tax comes up, you have to pay tax on all the goods that you've got, and if you can't afford to pay that, then you get called subject to torture, which I thought was a brilliant concept. And the idea there is instead of losing goods, you just lose whatever else you've picked up on the board. So it could be the improvements that you've got, it could be some of the people you've run out of the bag and they go back over there again. Unfortunately, although it's a great concept, it didn't seem to come up very often, if at all. I think we all had the kind of ability to pay the fines.
Yeah, so it's obviously you're subject to torture when you can't pay for something by points. So you start losing stuff.
I'd like that to be a bit more nasty. Really, I feel like the actual wasn't quite nasty enough for me.
Yeah, the actual losing of it is really nasty, but the circumstance of which you end yourself up in,
I think it could happen more often.
Yeah,
and I think it would. It may add something to the game. Yeah, like in Red Cathedral, it's not a big enough penalty when it does come up, or it's not often enough to be a real impairment to the game.
The argument there is you're going to know about the round scenario, and that activates at the end of the round.
That's
so
true.
you know about it. So are you then mitigating against it? So do you lose a round because you mitigated?
It did happen that came out as a tax, and people would deliberately chose to pick up a good movement rather than do something else.
Or move up on the farmer track,
because they knew they needed to pay it off.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, a little bit of randomness changes your strategy from what you were thinking.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Not a bad thing. So, would you play it again, Alan?
Well, it's a question to you then, John.
Yes, I would. I'd play it again now. We're 4 rounds into this game, and I'd like to just stop the camera and carry on playing, if I'm honest with you. It's a lovely game. First time I played this, I knew that I'd end up picking a copy of this up. I love it.
Yeah. Fun.
I would play it again right now as well. I just keep playing the game. You set the game up for this. I just keep on playing it. Yeah, I love it. It's got a lot of depth to it. It's got a lot of variability to it once the game's going.
Yeah.
And I think it's got a lot to offer. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I'd play it again soon. I think possibly my first experience with it, with the bag building, may have had a bad feeling. I like the idea. I like a lot of what the game's trying to do. I'd like to play it again. I think maybe playing it only the once has caused the issue there. Yeah. It wouldn't be something that I'd avoid, absolutely, but I'd play it again soon. So, brilliant. So, thank you for watching along with this episode of We'll Play Again. If you haven't done so already, please check out other videos on the channel, like, subscribe, find wherever John's pointing at, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.
Cheers.